first weekend of the OHL season is in the books, and already I've got bones to pick. I'm looking at you, Jacob Millette, and Andrew LeBlanc. Also, a tip of the hat to a former OHLer. I'll get to that in just a moment, but Poper, in case you missed this one,
yes,
over the first weekend of OHL action, because it's possible you missed it, Ryan O'Rourke got suspended for 2 games.
I did see that.
Where did you see it, though?
I saw it on Twitter. Somebody screenshotted the OHL's website where you have to go through 3 different things to find out a suspension. We had the commissioner, David Branch, on this podcast just a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now. No, a week ago. And that was the second time we had him on, actually. The first time we suggested that maybe the league start tweeting these suspensions so the media and fans know about it. We had a couple suggestions for Mr. Branch, but that was the one I made. And safe to say, I don't think they took my suggestion.
It's a little bit frustrating because I saw it the same way you saw it. In fact, I think I saw your retweet of the original tweet with the screenshot of the OHL media notes page. But it's frustrating because we've just begun another season. And I don't think what you're asking for in this case is an awful lot to ask for. And the fact that it's not happening, it keeps me asking the question, why? Is it because suspensions don't look good? They don't look good on the player, and maybe the league thinks that the suspensions don't look good on the league because, heaven forbid, you've got players that do suspendable things within your league and you don't want that image being out there. I don't know. But in the absence of the transparency that we've been asking for years in all of this, I find it a really frustrating way to start off. Just send out a media release so that the media, I don't care that somebody that's a fan of the game saw it first and shared it first. That's not what I'm getting at here. I'm just saying, let the people that cover the game know, let the fans know. They're probably on your email distribution list as well. They just, when they get there to the GFL Arena in Sault Ste. Marie, or where they played on the road in North Bay, the Greyhounds did, let the fans there know that Ryan O'Rourke, a highly touted defenseman in this league, is not going to be in the lineup because he got a 2-game suspension for head checking. It's that simple.
Well, and I'm stuck with the same question. I'm right with you when we ask why. Why isn't there transparency from the league in this? And maybe that's not the right way to put it, because they are being transparent and putting it under the media notes on their website that
fair enough,
he has been suspended. And I originally thought that the league was maybe just, as you put it, trying not to put it at the forefront that, hey, we're suspending a player for something that he did. But when was the last time a player was suspended where that team's media member didn't find out at the game, or that broadcast person, and tweet it out anyway, put it out into the universe, say it on the broadcast? It happens all the time. When 2 years ago, when the league last played their season, I can't remember who it was, but a player was suspended. We found out when we got to Oshawa. And we said it on the broadcast. We sent out the tweet. But why? I don't even need a press release, because I don't think you need to send out a whole press release for every suspension that's going to happen. I just don't understand why the league isn't more forefront and just sending a tweet. They send a tweet for everything else around the league. You can't send one tweet that just says, hey, Ryan O'Rourke suspended 2 games for head check. Done. That's all you need to do. Then everyone who follows your league is aware of what's going on. I don't know why they try to hide this, or maybe they're not trying to. Maybe it's just the way you and I look at it. But to me, just putting it on your website under the media notes that, to be honest, not a lot of people check every day and really shouldn't have to check every day, putting out a tweet, which is, I guess you could say, the way most people get their information nowadays. They're breaking news, if you will. I don't understand why you can't just do that to educate your fans, the media, players, of what's going on. I don't understand it. It takes literally 20 seconds to send a tweet.
There was a time that the Ontario Hockey League was going full on Brendan Shanahan when he was in charge of discipline with the NHL, and you got a little video explanation. And I really think that's valuable stuff, not for media and fans necessarily, but for the players themselves that even would see this. So you've got the link in the tweet that takes you to the video that shows what Ryan O'Rourke did that was very bad and suspension worthy. Thank you for 2 games. I mean, it just, I don't know. I think it's a huge missed opportunity.
I'm with you. And listen, I would love the video because I think those are great. And it's a great educational thing to show everyone who follows the league why this was a 2-game suspension or why it was suspendable in the first place. That's a lot of work. So I get it. There's a lot of other things going on. I don't think sending a tweet is really that big of a deal. But here we are, 3 games max into a season per team roughly. And we've already got a couple suspensions that haven't been sent out properly in my eyes. Anyway, well, in our eyes anyway. I don't think it's a black eye in the league if you suspend a player. I don't know why they would want to hide that. You're taking the action. The player did, or sorry, you're taking the reaction. The player did the action. It's a simple reaction. You suspended him. You should be, I don't want to say proud of it, but you're disciplining him for something he did wrong. There's nothing wrong in that. So I don't understand why it's just being hidden on a website and not being sent out to everyone.
It felt good to get the league back on the ice for obvious reasons. It was 576 days for the two of us between games from Wednesday, March the 11th, 2020, when we were part of a broadcast in Guelph that turned out to be the last night of OHL games before COVID shut everything down back in 2020, up until October the 8th, when we were first at a game at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. And like you said, coming into the season, Poper, if you're one that's been known to lay a wager or two along the way, lay it on the over. And that was the that was the order of the weekend for sure.
It was with the amount of rookie players in this league. We saw it firsthand in 2 games in Kitchener and in Guelph. Hockey's going to be sloppy for the first couple months. And with the amount of goaltenders that aren't experienced goaltenders in this league, there's going to be a lot of goals early in the season. And these stats are going to go through the roof. It's just the way the league is right now. And that's the way I see it anyway. It's going to be, and I mentioned it on the broadcast on Saturday night in Guelph. I was talking to a few scouts and asked them, "Oh, where were you last night?" They told me where. I won't say where for obvious reasons. And I said, "Oh, good game." And they both looked at each other and went, "Nope." So it's not just us that are seeing that. I think it's just across the league right now that because of the long layoff for the majority of players, because there's so many rookies in the league this year, and because of the lack of older proven goaltenders, it's going to be a high scoring sloppy game.
I promise I'm going to get to Millette and LeBlanc with good reason, damn it. But since you brought up Saturday in Guelph and getting the chance to talk to some scouts, let's just draw the curtain back here a little bit and talk about the weekend that was in the Ontario Hockey League, at least from the 2 rinks that we were in, but a bit of a bumpy transition back into hockey life, if you will, for the organizations, because the league had on Thursday, so the first day of the season, because there were 3 games on Thursday night, the 7th. So 24 hours or so before we were first at a game in Kitchener, but the league had sent out sort of its media policies, an umbrella policy, and there was a lot in it, make no mistake. But one of the things that was lacking on Friday night in Kitchener with our season debut was a lineup for people to look at. And I say people because scouts came to me in our broadcast booth before the game and said, "Hey, Farwell, did you get a lineup?" I'm like, I got nothing. We couldn't even get a cup of coffee in Kitchener on Friday night. And well, actually, you saved the day. You were everybody's hero because you did a coffee run off site. But then Saturday, we got to see the scouts because everybody was just kind of leaning up against the wall and standing around, crowding into this corridor outside the media room because we couldn't go into the room, but there was food served by tongs and coffee served by a latex gloved hand. And anyway, at least we got to gather around and speak to some of the people we usually speak to before a game. But it's a bit of a bumpy transition, I would say, for the first weekend.
It was. And that Friday night in Kitchener, I had many people coming up to me because I was up at the booth when you were down looking for a cup of coffee. People coming up, "Do you have a lineup sheet? Do you know where you get this lineup sheet?" And you know what? Game 1, I understand there's going to be some kinks, both in Kitchener and in Guelph and everywhere. In Guelph, yes, we were all eating in the hallway. I don't think that was what we were supposed to do, to be honest with you. I think they expect you to get your food and go to your seat on press row, or if you're a scout, just in the stand somewhere. I've told a couple people this when they ask, how was the first weekend? I don't care when I have to wear a mask. I don't care where I have to eat. I don't care what I have to download to get the stat pack. I don't care what they ask of me. We're back. I'll do it all. I don't care. I'm just glad to be back. And I think that was kind of the MO around the league this week and everyone I talked to. Is it ideal? No. Do we care? No. Like whatever they ask of us, whatever they tell us to do whatever rules are in place. Sure. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to question. I'm just going to do what I'm told in order to call OHL again.
I'm a little higher maintenance than you, obviously. I got a cup of coffee and a cookie on Saturday night in Guelph, and I was set. No, not to mention a lineup sheet. I'm a creature of habit. I guess maybe I do have to get into the 2020s here and get away from printed paper. But damn it, if I don't like having those names and those numbers right in front of me for quick reference. So I suppose I could get used to toggling a screen. But oh boy, that coffee on Friday night that you found was a lifesaver for a lot of people. And I was really happy to have one from the media room in Guelph on Saturday.
Well, and it's not just us. Like, I'll be honest. I don't think he'd care if I told the story. On Friday night, game 1 of the season, Guelph comes into town. I'm down at the Guelph room in a socially distanced area away from the room. And George Burnett came walking in. Of course, I said, "Hi, coach, welcome back." And we had a quick chat. And then he said, "Are you waiting for someone?" He offered to get me the player. And I told him who I was looking to interview. And he asked me, "Are we allowed to do this? Are we doing this year?" And I said it was initially no, that it was all going to be via Zoom. But then I believe it was just Thursday they released that, yes, you can do pre and post game interviews 6 feet away from the player, socially distanced, and not like obviously around other players. So I explained this to George and he went and grabbed the player. So there's so many moving pieces that even a guy like George Burnett isn't sure as to what's going on and what isn't sure as to what, media members are allowed and certain what the access to his players are. But we got through it and he understood, got an interview on the road, no issue. But I think just with all these moving pieces and now, of course, Friday night at the Odd, we find out that tomorrow, Saturday, they're allowing full capacity around. So the Guelph Storm couldn't even sell the additional tickets because they didn't have the people, the staff in place. So they only launched an extra 1,000 tickets. But now that rinks are 100% capacity, and now that the teams and organizations have the first weekend under their belt, I think things will move a little more smoothly now.
And to your point, we're back calling OHL games. Fans are obviously engaged based on our social media activity and the numbers of them that were in both rinks. We had just under 3,900 on Friday in Kitchener, just under 2,900 24 hours later in Guelph. I'm so happy for this league. I am so happy for the kids. And I'm with you. Just give me access to the building. Tell me where to go, how to dress while I'm on my way there, and then give me a microphone and let me be a part of this again, because not for 1 second ever will I take any of it for granted. No matter what the road trip is, no matter what time I have to leave, what time we get home, just let me call these games again. It's been such a treat. 2 games in, 66 to go. Bring them on. Bring them on.
I'm with you. And even that first weekend when, for the last 19 months, we've had our weekends wide open, to now all of a sudden Saturday be like, well, see you at 3:30. There goes your Saturday because you're worried about the game, you're prepping. And then Saturday night we got home at what? Like it was a Guelph game, 20 minutes down the road, and we still got home at, I think, like 11 o'clock almost.
Yeah.
But and then I got home and I had to do reports for the radio station the next day. I had to write a web article. And my girlfriend's like, "You're still working?" I'm like, "This is the job. This is it. Sorry, I can't, sit and talk and watch a movie. I got to listen to this interview I did and, transcribe quotes and all that." And I don't care. Like, yeah, it's a lot and it takes away your weekends. Pardon my language. Who cares? You know what I mean? We're back. And as you put it, like, I don't think I'll ever take it for granted again, just how lucky we are to be able to go into these rinks and watch the quality of hockey we are. You mentioned all the number of things we have to do. I want to transfer off that. And you mentioned numbers. So why are you mad at 2 kids right now?
Okay, I'm going to get to it. But real quick to what you were just talking about, find all of Chris's online game recaps at kitchenertoday.com. Find us on social, like so many did over that first weekend, @_ Chris Pope, @Farwell _ OHL. Email us if you want to have a guest on this podcast or you want to just tell us what you think of it, farwellandpope@gmail.com. And hey, leave a review, subscribe, follow along, all of those good things. Except Jacob Millette and Andrew LeBlanc. You're not allowed. Just get away from this podcast until you change your damn number. I know this is a little thing, but I'm going to start by picking the nit. Jacob Millette is a forward for the Guelph Storm. He's wearing number 6. Right? Andrew LeBlanc is a forward for the Kitchener Rangers. He's wearing number 7. This doesn't work for me, guys. So if you don't mind, Stop it. Or can we, because you know how I love the rules, Poper. I need to have the rules. And yes, I am completely making this about me and the difficulty in air quotes of being a play-by-play person. When you see number 6 on the wing, you're like, why is the defenseman jumping up in the rush? Oh, he's not a defenseman, he's a forward. Same with number 7. We got to figure this out like football figured this out. Stop it. Shout out to Warren Fogle, who wore number 3 with the Kingston Frontenacs. No more. Please, we have to have rules. And then honorable mention, Justin Nole, number 95. Don't even ask me what Ty Hollett's doing with 74. We're gonna have to get into all of these guys' numbers and why they have them. But Justin Nole scores the winner on Saturday night. I'm thinking, why is a forward down by? Oh wait, no, that's a defenseman wearing number 95. Wear whatever number you want, but no, actually don't. Can we have some rules around this? Single digits are for defensemen. End of story.
I'm with you, and I think I called that out on the Friday night.
You did, so that's why I thought I'd bring it up.
What is LeBlanc doing wearing 7 as a forward? But
his brother's the defenseman, wears 11.
Wearing 11.
Like, one of them got it
7-11.
right.
7-11. We saw Joseph Greffo wear 4, and I don't remember you complaining too much. Or was it just that Joseph was easy to identify?
Maybe that, you know what? It probably was. That's a very good point. But wait. Yeah, you're right. Well, he was also
he was a defenseman, he was a forward, he was
and he came in he had been a defenseman his whole life until his last year, right? When his draft year. And then I think I'm thinking like 2 to 10, 2 to 11, let's go 2 to 11 for defense, 12 to 22 for, I don't know, just make something easier. It's ridiculous. It's hard on us old guys. Number 6 and number 7 being forwards, 95s on defense. What the HE double hockey sticks.
Justin Bailey, number 95. It doesn't bother me that much. And I think, like even the NFL, they always had the rule that certain players could only wear, or certain positions could only wear certain numbers. And they've relaxed that now, opening up all numbers. Tom Brady even came out and said that he hated it. So I'm not going to get into what numbers players can or can't wear. I think the biggest thing is if a player has just left your team, the year before, that number shouldn't be allowed to be wore for a year.
So Adam Zidlicky's got you just spinning still.
Yeah. Of course, that's a Kitchener forward, and he's wearing 13. Riley Damiani wore 13 for 3 years, I think. So it's just, and the last time we played, he was obviously on the team. So as soon as you see 13, that's where your brain goes, and you got to just have to re-educate yourself. We're old. We've been away for a long time. Re-educating ourselves on these numbers is the hardest part. The amount of times I had to look down and look at what number is that? Who's that? It's not good. But the good news is 4 of the 6 games are against the Storm for the Kitchener Rangers on our broadcast. So I'll know all the Storm players by next week.
Saturday was so easy after Friday because it's like, oh, the same teams do it. It's like a playoff series. Do it all over again. But just to be clear about this, I'm just having a little bit of fun. I think both Jacob Millette and Andrew LeBlanc are fine young men and fine hockey players, and their numbers are just weird for the positions they play. But they can wear whatever number they want. I just thought we'd have some fun because we're back playing OHL hockey and broadcasting it.
You mentioned the way people can get in contact with us, farwellandpope@gmail.com, or on the Twitters. We had Lowell Williamson again and Cam Stewart down in Windsor area. Both fans of the podcast emailed us guest ideas. So if you have some guest ideas, feel free to throw them out to us. Or if you just want to text or email us and tell us that you don't like us, that's also fair.
It was Lowell who got Scotty McCrory, right? That's what led to Scott McCrory's podcast, which was great fun.
Great idea.
Good.
Yeah.
I look forward to following up on more. We've received a few others way back in the off times. Clearly, we have a lot of listeners in Kitchener and fans in Kitchener, which is great because that's our home broadcast team. But yeah, like it's great to hear from guys down Windsor way. I know we've got some fans in Erie that like the pod, and keep them coming from everywhere. Yes, we will track down the former Rangers too, but we want to make this about the Ontario Hockey League, and there are 19 other teams to choose from.
Yeah, and we want to get a variety. We've had general managers, commissioners, coaches, players. We want to get a variety, not just all former players. Sometimes their stories are kept private. Whereas, as you will find out this week, a former player and head coach let some stories loose, let's say.
I was just going to get into that because we've got, it's a pretty neat mix this week with a guy that played in the league, went on to win I shouldn't go any more than this because this is your part of the podcast. But yeah, we had a guy that played and then came back and coached in this league as well. And I certainly will just say and I wouldn't say this during the interview because I don't want him to know this, but I've got a lot of time for this guy. I got a ton of respect for this guy. He was never anything but good to me from his first day in this league. And I certainly hope we see him back in the league. And I'll leave it to Poper to finish off the introduction to this guest this week.
Real quick before we get into that introduction, there is one team, as we sit here on Tuesday, October 12th, one team that is 3-0 in the Ontario Hockey League. Any guesses on who that team would be, Mike Farwell?
Oh, I'll give you this by now.
I'll give you this hint. Don't think too hard.
Oh, no, really? The London Knights?
The London Knights, 3-0.
You don't say. I was thinking
19 months off.
Yeah.
19 months off, and some things just don't change. Our guest this week, one time a member of the Detroit Junior Whalers, after he played in his hometown for the Hamilton Kilty Bees, and then went on to the Plymouth Whalers, and then snuck up north back into Ontario, or back into Canada, to play Saint FX. I was going to ask him about it and say he went to Acadia, because I knew that would rub him the wrong way, because he's so incredibly proud of his time at Saint FX, and why not? Won a championship with his brother there, member of the Saint FX Hall of Fame, then got into coaching under a couple of guys, Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott. I don't know if you've heard of them. Then took over the reins in Kitchener, made a pit stop in Humboldt, back to Hamilton. The guy's been around. He has been under the tutelage of some wise minds, and he a wise mind himself. Some great stories from his time as a player, some better stories from his time as a coach. We get them all from Troy Smith.
Obviously, we have a lot of ground to cover with our guest this week. And before we even get into it, I want to throw back to a previous podcast guest. And I'm going to, in the art of the tease, I'm going to do this later in the podcast as well. A different previous guest. But in this case, as we have our conversation with Troy Smith, he told us that he would not come on this podcast until none other than Pete Krupske made his appearance. Might have been the only podcast guest we've had that got emotional while talking about his days in the game. But Smitty, why was Krupper's appearance before yours so important to you? Tell us a little bit about that relationship.
Well, I've known Krupper for 26 years, I guess now, right? And I think Krupper can be misunderstood a lot of times when you meet him, depending on the mood. He can be a little bit crusty here and there. I think we all know that, and he wouldn't disagree, but not many guys are as passionate about his job and what he does and what he did for that Whalers organization. I just thought it was appropriate that he got recognized, and I thought that was one of your best episodes.
See, I thought it was you wanted to see what stories he'd tell of you first, so then you could have the last say in the argument.
Well, there's some stories between Krupper and I that'll just, be left unsaid, but I'm sure he told some, I know he told some good stories, and, there's not really that much to talk about me with Krupper other than every time we went in there, he made sure it was the trivia question, and it was all good.
Obviously, a lot to talk about with you and the Ontario Hockey League, including that time as a Whaler. But before we even get to that, Troy, really, I think your passion for this game was ignited when you first took in an OHL game as a fan. What do you remember of that?
It's true. I can't remember who brought it up, which guest brought it up, but my first OHL game was actually a global game of the week. I want to say it would have been probably 85 or 86. It's on YouTube. It's the famous bench brawl between the Sioux and the Steelhawks, where Brad Dalgrano stood right in there with Bob Probert, and big delay. I'm sure a lot of headaches for our good friend David Branch, but that was my first game. And then from there, we went on to billet a couple players, one being Sean McCosh, whose brother Shane played for the Rangers back in the day. Sean went on to have a really good pro career. A couple games in the NHL, scored one goal. Actually, he's in Ken Reed's book, One Night Only. And then we also had Todd Gleason, who, funny enough, I live in Burlington now, and he probably lives about 5 minutes away from me. He met his wife at our house. She was working for my mom, and being around those guys, I was really, really fortunate to be exposed to what a great league the OHL was. Or is.
Was it always hockey for you, Troy?
Yeah, like growing up, it's hard not to be. In my house, all four boys played at one time or another, but I really had a passion for the game from day one, and there was never a question if I was going to go NCAA or OHL. It was OHL all the way, and what a great ride it was.
Well, it's interesting you bring up NCAA versus OHL, because OHL it is for you, and it was all the way, except you get drafted to a team in the United States. What's that like for a kid from the Hammer?
It was amazing, because honestly, that's one of the few teams that didn't talk to me. Was at the time they were still the junior wings. And it was funny because a really good friend of mine to this day, Tyrone Garner, who played for the Oshawa Generals, he had been interviewed by him numerous times, and we both wanted to go there to play at the Joe. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Got drafted by Detroit, met a great young coach and a future mentor of mine, and Pete DeBoer, who had been on the job for about 2 weeks. And about 2 weeks after that, we became the Whalers. So I really didn't care where I was going to get drafted to. I just wanted to play. But, I was definitely surprised to be taken by the junior wings. And obviously, it really worked out, and everything happens for a reason.
How was the city of Plymouth when you went there as a boy from Hamilton?
Well, we actually started my first year. We played at Oak Park. And, bless Don. Don would have to be the one to tell you the stories about that place, because it was absolutely freezing. It was a kiddie rink. And, it was quite the experience, because I want to say we had 12 home games at Oak Park and 21 at the Palace. So we didn't end up in Plymouth right away. We were back and forth. I lived in Windsor my first year with Tom and Yale Joyce, who were great people. And then we moved to Plymouth my second year. And I think Plymouth's really a hidden gem. Like, it's a beautiful little city. Great community. I had fantastic billets there as well. And it was a great experience, just really different than, a Canadian city where everybody lives and breathes by what the OHL teams do. And it's a little bit different, where you kind of have to explain, hey, we're actually really good players. I think we had 5 first-round NHL picks on our team my last year, and just explaining the difference between that and Michigan State, University of Michigan, places like that was a bit of a challenge, but I had a great time, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
So what's the first game like in the Ontario Hockey League for you, particularly where you were playing it?
Well, exhibition or regular season? I can tell you, I got caught watching a pass and broke my jaw in the first game, but that was it's exciting. It's a boyhood dream. It was in Windsor. I don't really have vivid memories, because I probably only got 2 or 3 shifts. I think I was more just in awe and just happy to be there, really.
What happened on the broken jaw play?
Well, nice shot from the point, a little floater, just, getting it to the net, and I was watching it, and I still to this day have no idea who it was, but literally cross-check right in the face, went to the bench with my 2 teeth. Doc, why can't I think of his name? I can see him. He's an author now, but the doc had to literally reimplant the teeth right inside the room. And I started a journey and a relationship with a dentist. At one point, the dentist actually gave me $100 for gas money, because I'd been there so many times. But, the teeth look good now, but there was a lot of times where it was pretty messy.
What kind of pain were you in when he's shoving teeth back into an empty hole in your mouth?
That one hurts a lot.
Yeah.
They don't have time for the freezing, but that's what you're supposed to do. And it was directly to the dentist after that to get wired up. But definitely learn, don't admire your past. But thankfully too, though, the game has changed. Nowadays, that'd be a 30, 40 game suspension for somebody.
Okay, so you guys both know me well enough to know that I am being sincere when I say, even hearing that story, I get squeamish. I couldn't, not for 1 second, that kind of pain. Honestly, it makes me squeamish just hearing about it. But it ties into something else I wanted to talk to you about, Troy, because I know you wear this as a bit of a badge of honor, and so you should. And I think you referenced those trivia questions that you were always a part of when you came back into Plymouth as a coach. I do believe it's either the Ironman streak or the most games played, but you took great pride in not missing games while you were in the O.
I got hurt a fair amount, but I played a lot. I did take pride in playing hurt and doing what I can for the team. Obviously, I think Spotter mentioned it in his interview that I was a defenseman and a forward for the team, but I was just a team guy, and I think ultimately down the road, that's why I was given opportunities to continue in it and coach. Obviously Pete coached a lot better players than me, but both him and Spotter saw something in me. And I think it was hard work and commitment and passion for the game. So I took pride in that. I still take pride in it to this day, even in my automotive industry. I think you get out of things what you put into it. And I like to think that I was a good team guy.
Let me follow this up real quick, Chris. I'm sorry, but it ties in because you mentioned the guys who were your mentors as coaches and what they thought of you from that dedication as a player. You also had to show that same dedication and play hurt, if you will, as a coach. I believe it was the 08 Memorial Cup run. Was that the one? If I'm getting my date straight.
Yeah, I don't find this story as funny as you do, Mike, but
we all find it funny.
So this was more stupid pride, to be honest with you. And so we were in Belleville, and I think we all know the story now that Steve Mason was hurt. And Mace gets off the bus on his crutches and needs his wallet. He forgets his wallet at the back of the bus. So me being, the energetic one, I'll get it for you, stay at the front of the bus. So I'm hopping over the bus, and I get about halfway back, and I happen to toe pick against the Gatorade container, to which point I fell literally knee first right onto the armrest, and never told anybody. But about a year later, Dr. Duke, who we all know from the Rangers, informed me that I had likely broken my kneecap, but decided not to tell anybody, because when I was writhing in pain in the back, all I could hear was the laughter up front from Pete and Spotter. But hey, it is what it is. I probably should have sought some medical attention, but still a fun story nonetheless.
Their names have come up a couple times, but that relationship between you and Pete and Spotter, how does it go to what it was from being a player under a coach?
You know what? There was obviously, when I was done playing, I went off to St. FX University, as you well know, Chris.
I thought it was Acadia. I was going to bring that up earlier.
Oh, well, hey, you know what? That's a sign of your intelligence. But anyway,
I'm kidding.
It's all good. It's all good. 2-0 St. FX is right now. But no, when I was done, I would go back, and I just wanted to be around it. So I'd help with training camp, and then I'd go back and I'd help during playoffs if they were still in it. And that's really when the relationship started to change, when there wasn't that, the player coach thing, and they started to really mentor me, and including in my decision to go to St. FX. And, it was more of a gradual thing. I always think of it as, Pete was kind of more of the dad role, tell it to me straight and, kind of knock me over the head if I needed to hear things. And then Spotter is, more like the uncle role, where, he still tells it to me straight, don't kid yourself, but a little bit more of the rah-rah relationship. But, I would say that we all have that relationship now, where there's some pretty good banter going back and forth. And, I'm unbelievably fortunate to still call those guys dear friends to this day.
Isn't the short version of the story really that you showed up, started helping out, and just wouldn't leave until they gave you a job? Isn't that kind of how it all worked?
Kind of. But realistically, what happened was I was playing in the United Hockey League for the now infamous Danbury Trashers, and I was actually going to go back to school and become a teacher. And I can still see it to this day, sitting on my flip phone. And Pete calls me and says, listen, we got a job opening. If you want it, it's yours. So I believe we had a day off the next day, or maybe it was 2 days. So I literally, in the middle of playoffs, got in my car, drove to Kitchener, sat down, met with Pete and Spotter, gave me the parameters of the job, gave me the parameters of the contract, and agreed to do it at that point. So really, I just think, I was really lucky to be in the right place at the right time and make the most of it.
I think you mentioned Danbury. Where do we even start on that after that documentary if people haven't seen it? I guess I'll just ask straight up, how many suitcases full of money did you get?
And where are they hidden now?
I don't know if you remember me as a player, Chris, but I really wasn't that good. But I'll tell the story. It's kind of public knowledge now. But so I was actually, my first year I played in Quad City. For the Quad City Mallards, which is the United Hockey League, for Paul Gillis, who's former coach of the Windsor Spitfires, played for the Quebec Nordiques. the next year, I knew it was going to be my last year of hockey, and then I was going to get on with life. I played in London, England for a team called the London Racers, which had to fold about 2 months in because the rink, again, I'm in another kiddie rink, figure that one out, right? Probably parallel to my game, wasn't safe. So they had to shut the team down. There was glass breaking, all this other stuff. But we still had our flats for like 5 months after that. So Gilly calls me when he finds out that the team's folding. And needless to say, he had offered me $175 a week bump from what I made the year before. But I said to him, you know what, Gilly, I'm going to take this flat in London, which is worth probably 3,000 pounds a month. I'm just going to live here. I'm going to be a crappy waiter, but I'm going to have a great time in Europe, and then I'm going to move on with life. My older brother, CA, was living in London, England at the time as well. So hang up. I don't think anything of it. The next day, Gilly calls me again. He goes, listen, I've talked to my owner. He said I'm being cheap. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you X amount to sign and basically double the offer of the day before, which equated to basically 2 weeks worth of pay for the signing bonus and 3 times what I made the week or the year before. So off I was to Danbury as quick as I could get there to start collecting the check. But it was all above board for me. There was no cash. It was actually quite brilliant how they did it. It was, you got paid X amount for the United Hockey League, and then you got paid X amount through a marketing company, which included, going to appearances at places like 7-Eleven and sit there for half an hour to an hour. Nobody would walk in, or sometimes they would. You know what? You sign the autographs, and then you'd have to sign off that you were there. They'd take a picture of us that we were there. And it was great. You know what? Danbury was an unbelievable place to play. People that haven't watched the doc should definitely watch it. But I've got nothing but great things to say about my time in Danbury and the way Jimmy, AJ, the whole family, Candace's sister, and Mrs. Galante treated us. It was top shelf and one heck of a way to end the career.
What did you think of the doc?
I thought it was really good. It's at times hard to follow for me, just because there was a little bit of creative license there where, the timeline didn't work. I knew that, but again, they're trying to make something that's entertaining, but all of it was legit. Like, that was the thing. Everybody keeps asking, was it all true? And it's like, yeah, but there was actually probably a whole nother doc full of stuff that we could have done on incidents that happened. And, every day was an adventure, but it was a great team to be a part of, because really they talk a lot about the goons in there, right? Not the goons, but the tough guys, right? I shouldn't say that. And they were. Like, I drove Brad Wingfield to the rink every day. He lived in my community, who's a main character in this documentary. And we had probably half of our guys were like that, where if you looked at them the wrong way, you were in one. And then we had half the guys, though, that were really, really good players. And, Mike Rupp talks about it in the doc. Like, AJ did a really good job with his dad and Paul Gillis of putting together a great hockey team. And, we ran into some injuries, things like that. And Kalamazoo had a good team as well. Let's not discount them. But, we were within a couple of games of winning the championship, which, what more do you want when obviously all the stuff behind the scenes is going on?
So the synopsis of the doc, for anybody who hasn't seen it, is basically the movie that you came to know as Slapshot with Paul Newman in real life, so to speak. So you talk about those tough guys that were a key part. That was part of the creation of this team. Was there ever a point, Smitty, as a player, that you sat there and looked around and thought, what the hell am I doing here?
A couple for sure. There's one that when it involves Section 102, and those Section 102 people, they were passionate as can be, but when you see the body bag come out, the horn that would just be on for 30 seconds straight, like, there were things being said that you just shook your head at that nowadays would never be tolerated, but it was of the time. But the one story that really sticks with me, and again, I can see it as vivid as today, is when I talk about Sean McCosh. So I went and saw Sean McCosh play, I want to say it would have been like 98 during the Olympic break. He was playing for the Philadelphia Phantoms. Detroit had their farm team in. Myself and Jesse Boleris went to the game because Jesse was a Flyers draft pick. But I went to go watch Sean. And there was a player on his team that's infamous named Frank the Animal Biolis. So I know who the animal was. And I walk into the dressing room the one day, and no word of a lie, I've never been so afraid of a teammate in all my life, because I walk in and Frank had played on the team the year before. At this point, he was working for like Pennsylvania Telephone or something like that. I walk in and I literally stopped dead in my tracks, and I'm like, without using the language that I did, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's the animal. And Frank the Animal is in our dressing room. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, playing Adirondack. I know they got a tough team, but so I kind of walk by him. Hi, Frank, how are you? You know, says hi. Everybody's talking about it in the room because Frank is a renowned tough guy, like pound for pound, one of the toughest guys. He's a legend in Philadelphia. So what had happened is the team had basically brought him in for one game. But when it got really screwed up was we walk out for warm up, and at the one end we've got, and this video is on YouTube, I'll share it with you so you can put it in the liner notes or whatever. We walk out, and on the video screen is a WWF and Frank the Animal clips intertwined, okay, of, you know, the Undertaker music, the dong dong, and then clips of Frank just beating on guys and stuff. And at the end, Adirondack, the reason why Frank was brought in for that game, Adirondack had a guy named Blue Benefield, who is a legit tough guy. Like, he would go toe to toe with anybody, extremely tough. And at the end of it, there was a picture of Blue on the screen and a Budweiser symbol. Sorry, Puppy, if that's not Molson Pride.
It's not,
but,
no.
You know, anyways, Budweiser symbol that says, "This one's for you, Blue," with his picture on it. So we literally had a bounty on this guy's head that Frank the Animal was brought in to fight you, Blue. And the disappointing part of the story is they never fought. I think Frank was -2. I think we lost. But the greatest story of all, like, that was unbelievable, because I remember Jeff Don warm-up skating around. He's like, "Smitty, what are we doing here?" I said, "Well, I know you're getting paid well. I'm getting paid well. Let's just roll with it, buddy." All right, so played the game, but you got to watch the video to understand it. But there was things like that that happened that, you know, were quite entertaining. Let's put it that way.
I can't believe they didn't go.
Oh, I wouldn't fight Frank the Animal either. It's easy for you to say that, Poker, when you're not staring down.
Yeah, very, very easy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think Blue was in a very, he wasn't in a win-win situation, right? Because if he fights Frank, then next time out you got Wingfield, and the next time out you got McIsaac, and like that was the toughest team bar none that I ever played on, and you know, the '96 Whalers were a pretty tough team.
Well, that's a great thing, though, for a guy like you who, you know, was never shy about the physicality. You got to be one of the scoring sensations on that Trashers team.
Well, I don't know about a scoring sensation, but I will say that on another, maybe lesser known podcast, Spit and Chicklets, AJ Galante did say that I was a very skilled defenseman missing in the finals. So I'll take that one.
We appreciate the knowledge that you have of podcasts around hockey. Obviously, that's a lesser known podcast than OHL Stories here. So
never heard of it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Going back to your time in Plymouth, you mentioned that tough team. What's it like playing on a team that is that tough and you can, you know, be a little more offensive and have a little more fun?
It's nice, you know. Back then, though, like, it's a different game. The game has changed for the better, for sure, where you don't have to worry about it. But it's certainly nice to know that, you know, you've got other guys that are tougher than you and maybe enjoy that role, and you're kind of the secondary attraction where, you know, you'd have to fight for what I would call the right reasons, and that would be an emotional play where, you know, things happen, nothing that's set up or going into it knowing that I'm gonna have to scrap that guy. All that stuff is garbage, and I'm happy that it's out of the game.
Okay, so Poper put this one nicely on a tee for me here, leads into it, because yes, we've made a lot of references to what doesn't happen in the game anymore, and absolutely for the better. But tough teams sometimes get involved in tough things, and something that never happens anymore in the league is what happened between the Plymouth Whalers and the Sioux Greyhounds before the puck even dropped. It was one of those infamous, like you talked about your first OHL game, and oddly enough, it was the Sioux involved in that one with the Steelhawks. But what happened between the Whalers and the Hounds before the game even started?
So yeah, this game, I can't imagine if somebody actually had video of it. It's definitely before they started filming warm-ups. I can't remember who the players were on the Sioux side that started it, but basically what happened is somebody flipped the puck over on our side, and then we kind of snapped the puck at them, and then they snapped one back a little bit harder at us. And next thing you know, it's Sioux on one blue line, Whalers on another blue line, and I'm not kidding, full clappers, bang, back and forth at each other. You know, guys were going back to the corner, putting the puck back to the blue line, taking full slap shots. And I'll never forget, and I can't believe I was dumb enough to be watching the linesman and not watching for my own life. Whoever the poor linesman was, he's sitting there, he's like, stop, guys, stop, stop. And there's pucks whizzing by this poor guy. And it didn't stop until Spotter and the other Sioux coach came out. But I can remember, like, Paul Mara had a pretty hard slap shot. And, you know, thankfully nobody got hurt. But if you're blocking Paul Mara's slap shot in the chest, it's going to leave a little bit of a mark. But it's one of those things that, unless you saw it, it's really hard to articulate and understand. But it was literally just like a shooting range. It was like we went to the backyard and just started taking clappers at a net, but really it was at our opponents. And different times, that's for sure.
See, back to what I said before about being squeamish. I would have just left the ice. I don't care. Reputation be damned. I'm out of there.
Just hide behind somebody or get behind the net. But
That too.
no, like those days were completely different. I can remember playing Belleville in the playoffs, and in the old barn there, which is still there for an American League. As the visitors, you'd have to go out and you'd go to the right actually for warm up. I think when they left Belleville, you'd go to the left. And it was when the teams would go out for 20 minutes and then 15 minutes. And like we're shooting pucks in the crowd. It was awful. But one of the Belleville players, well-known player, I won't bring up his name, is blocking our entrance. And then again, Jesse, who I've talked about, Bolaris, says, all right, out of the way, boys, and literally sprinted down the hallway, right out the door like a WWF move, and just bowls this guy over. And so sure enough, scrum ensues because now we come out, and I'll never forget, I'm pretty sure it was Bowler, doing a big spin around our zone, and out of nowhere, like WWF again, jumps into the pile. And you know, it could have been a lot worse than it was, but you know, fans were at us. You know, again, it's just a different time. Like anybody that's been to Windsor Arena, it's just a different world now. The league's a lot better, thank God. But I don't know if that story does any justice or not. You'd have to have been there, I think. But
I was just going to bring up that Windsor Arena because you mentioned the old barn in Belleville, and we get lots of Windsor Arena stories on this podcast. And being so close in Plymouth, and obviously the Detroit CompuWare at the time, what was it like going into that Windsor Arena?
that was like a home game for me, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because I did the math one time, and I think through playoffs and everything else, I think I played 33 games there. And it got to the point, like, you know, we had pretty good teams in Plymouth, where I had been there so long and played so many games, the fans would get on me. I'll never forget the one guy. It was my second year. I skate out for warm up, and they had the short glass, right? It would have been great for the short guys to be able to chirp and stuff, right? And maybe, but
It still would have been too high for me, guys. Let's be honest.
like, just they give you little jabs. It was, you know, I skate out, and we were a bad team. We barely made the playoffs. I think I was like -14 or -15. Guy reads out, Troy Smith -15. Yeah, you're going somewhere, right? And then they just be relentless on you. But I'll never forget the one night I'm out on the ice, and I'm in a scrum in the corner with DJ Mando, and the lights go out. The lights go completely out. It was Frisbee night, right? So we're sitting on the bench, and we literally, if I could show my visor, we got our visors pulled down. And I'll never forget hearing Greg Steffen being like, bleep, right? Because he got pegged. Like, all you'd hear is just this like tink, tink, tink all around the boards, because everybody just throwing Frisbees at us. You know, guys getting electrocuted in the shower. You know, people standing behind the movable stanchions that you'd walk to get to the dressing room, chirping you and pushing it. And it was, you know what, like, it was a zone, like it was a battle zone going in there every single night. But then you'd walk in, because we would go over and watch games, and they'd be your best friends. Like, I love Windsor, not just for the great pizza, but also, their passion for that game. And, that's one of the things I do miss about the OHL is the rinks that have that kind of character.
I think that Frisbee story is the best story I've heard on this podcast.
It could be. It's up
That
there.
is awesome.
It's making me think, and it ties into what you just said, Smitty, about missing the OHL. But I'm wondering, as I listen to these stories, and you've got a few beauties, if it makes you think, whew, good thing I didn't become a teacher when I was thinking about it, or you sit back and say, what the hell was I thinking? I should have become a teacher because it's pretty nutty out here.
Yeah, I'd grown up in Hamilton. I think I'm pretty comfortable in the nutty situations, right? So, no, I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, there's tons of other stories that, there's stories that you don't even remember, right? That, somebody, jars your memory, and, how do you forget that, right? And then there's stories that you can't tell in this environment, right? That, go a long way. But at the end of the day, you know what? Hey, it didn't really end the way I wanted it to at this point, right? Not saying that I would never be back, but the people that you meet in this game are top shelf and unbelievable. And I wouldn't trade the relationships that I've built for anything, right? Nothing at all.
First up, you can tell any story on this podcast, Smitty. Any story you want.
Well, no.
Yeah, any story you want.
I'm like the person in the dock that you would know. I value loyalty.
I like it. Second, of course, you're used to those types of scenarios. 3 brothers, right? You grew up like I can imagine your house was basically the Windsor Arena growing up.
Pretty close, yeah. It was a house of 4 boys. God bless my mother for being able to put up with us, and and 4 boys. Like, and we didn't live in a huge house. We lived in a semi-detached house that's probably 1,200 square feet. And then on top of that, we'd bring in hockey players. So. My house was a little bit different where, my older brother, my youngest brother kind of went more in the artistic way, whereas Mikey, my brother who played with me at St. FX and fortunate to win the national championship with him, we kind of went the athletic way. So it was a bit of a unique household, and it was my poor mother. That's all I can say. Like the things so here's a story for you. So this is a Sean McCosh story though. All right, for billeting. So, and I forgot about this one until you jogged my memory here. Right. So my mom's rushing around. She's got 4 boys. Right. So dinner's on the table. It's spaghetti. And Mark, my youngest brother Mark, how old would Mark have been? Mark would have been no more than 6, like 5 or 6. So my mom's rushing upstairs, getting all ready. And Sean, Mark, put it in your hair. Put it in your hair. So Mark, who would listen to anything that Sean said, whoop, right? Rub it in. So Mark rubbing it in like it's shampoo. The look on my mother's face when she comes down and my brother's just smiling at her with like spaghetti strands all over was brilliant. Brilliant. And I'm sure she wanted to strangle Sean at the time, but those are the sorts of things that happen away from the rink that, really make billeting so much fun.
Spaghetti's always a go-to. I think if you have that many kids, it's easy, it's quick, kids like it, but it's always a dangerous food because that can get pretty out of hand.
Oh quickly. Yeah, well, we had a few fights, I'm sure, with it going across the table and things like that.
Farzy, if I can follow that up real quick, Troy, you mentioned that national championship. You won it with your brother Mike, but I heard that Mike might have had a broken ankle in a basketball game that you weren't pulling your weight in. Do you remember that?
No, I've never heard that story before in my life.
No? I was told that you were in a basketball game against, I don't know who you were playing, but one of them was a woman on the St. FX basketball team, and she crossed over your brother. Yeah, she crossed over your brother and broke his ankle.
I don't think he ever broke it, right? But he
probably, maybe a high sprain.
Maybe a high sprain, but probably the best story about that team was we talk about NCAA. So in the CIS, a lot of teams will go to the US to play exhibition games, right? Get a few games on the schedule. The NCAA teams like it because they call it a scrimmage. So the year we won, Danny Flynn was our coach, and Danny's an unbelievable coach, but he had the best lines going. Like, he just throw out one-liners that would throw you for a loop. So we go down and we played, I can't remember who we played. The second game was against Dartmouth. I know that. And the night before, university kids, got a little bit of trouble. There might've been some damage in the hotel room to start. We win the game. We're driving back. Immigration guy gets on, and anything to declare. Well, you're university students where the cost of alcohol in the US versus the cost of alcohol in Canada, significantly different, way cheaper in the US. So everybody gets on, one bottle, one duty free, one duty free. Immigration guy goes under, and I will throw this guy under the bus. Graham Power brought a suitcase. I don't know why you bring a suitcase on the road or who does that. Guy pulls it out, sees a big 60-ounce bottle in his bag. He pulls the whole bus over, the whole bus. And I have pictures of this. We all had to put our bags through scanners to where they're pulling bottles out. Guys are now on probation at the border. We've got pictures with the border guards, right? We're in big, big trouble. Mikey and I got off because we were family, so we weren't over the limit. Beautiful, right? But so that happens. So we've got damage in the hotel room. We got pulled over at the border. Danny's not a happy camper. So the next day we go to practice. We're going to practice on the auxiliary rink because Great Big Sea is playing that night at our school on the stadium rink. And they're basically, they run side by side. So there's glass. Flinner blows the whistle, comes over, he always scrapes off his stick and then taps it twice. And he goes, you hear that over there? And we can hear the Great Big Sea doing their sound check. We're all like, yeah, we know we're in for it. He goes, Great Big Sea over there, Great Big Skate over here, line up. And just like back and forth for an hour. But that team ended up winning the national championship. So long way for the one line, but it was a good one, I thought.
You know, it brings into the conversation something I know you're also very passionate about, and I wanted to ask, along with hockey, is music. I don't know how Alan Doyle and Great Big Sea rank in the overall, library of Troy Smith. I know you're proud Hamilton boys, so the Arkells are up there, but you've got a huge love for music. Where'd you get it from?
That's really all from my dad. My dad was a disc jockey. I think, as you know, Mike, he spent time on Chime FM 96.7, but really grew up with him on CKOC 1150, which is now no longer AM station, but that was back when AM was huge. And so my dad was a disc jockey. He still plays music once this COVID stuff opens up. To this day, he still plays in a band. So we had a ton of records down below. And I was also fortunate enough that my godfather is a gentleman named Nevin Grant, who unfortunately passed away about a year ago. And Nevin is in the Canadian Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and he's really well known for the top 40 that CKOC used to do, where he was really a hit maker. Like, he would go around, he would listen to it, and the stories that my dad has about him, John Novak, Ray Michaels, I know I'm missing some other guys, Jason Roberts. There's a ton of guys about, the people they interviewed and the things that happened, and different songs that they gave a try. Like, CKOC was a big station back then, to the point where, it was a traveling road show. They'd have the CKOC Hockey Pucks, the Busy Bees, or the baseball team. And really that's where it grew, was just being around, my dad, really.
I had no idea Nevin was your godfather. And we've known each other for a lot of years, and I'm a radio geek. You're not. You're probably underselling Nevin Grant's influence on the radio industry for sure.
Oh, 100%. Like, you mentioned the word Nevin Grant to anybody that's in radio, there's a reason why he was going in the Hall of Fame. Like, he and what a gentleman of a man. Him and his wife Heather. They used to have me for the weekend. Every year we'd go to Flamborough Downs and watch the ponies. But Nevin's a fantastic man. The world definitely lost a rock icon, really. You talk to anybody in Canadian radio and they know who Uncle Nev is.
We've kind of bounced around your career all over the place throughout this podcast. So I'm just going to circle back to your time when Pete and yourself and Spotter all came to Kitchener. What was it like being in that coach's room all the time with a guy like Pete and Spotter?
A lot of fun, right? Like, I think everybody knows about Spotter's antics, and I know Farwell Michael probably wants to get to the first stunt Spotter pulled on me, which I'll gladly tell, but a great amount of fun. Like, the one thing about those guys is like, they do an unbelievable job of separating when it's time to have fun and when it's time to get down to business. And I think you guys both know that, but it was a ton of fun. There was never a dull day. I was single for a lot of that time, so they were, definitely chirping me about that and trying to get involved in different things. But couldn't have much more fun than that. So, little perch there, Poper. You
little parched.
There? You got somebody delivering water to you.
Listen, you got to stay hydrated. When you get to the big time, people deliver you water. See.
I hear you.
So you alluded to it, and it's funny because when we had Spotter on this podcast back during the lost season last year, but he did cop to the Bob Bugner photocopier story that traveled, or they sent to. I'm trying to from Florida to San Jose, right? Well, I can't remember which way, but anyway, but Spotter was famous for the antics for sure. Did he get you? Did you leave your email unlocked? What was the stunt he pulled on you?
I did not leave my email unlocked. Dan Liebold did. So we've talked about the Trashers a little bit, and I was finishing up my career, and the injury I had was I had a legitimate concussion. In the finals, it actually happened earlier, and then I played. And anyways, I had a concussion when I ended with Danbury. So I know Spotter's a prankster, right? And he says to me, "You know what, Smitty? You've had the head injury, so to get the insurance, you might have to do a physical." And I'm like, "No, like there's no way." I'm like, basically tell him to shuffle on, Spotter. I don't believe you. Next thing you know, I get about a 4 or 5 paragraph email from Dan Liebold. And it's explaining all the reasons why I need to have these tests done. And it's, for my life insurance, and it's so important. We can't get you on board with the benefits until you do this. And it's going to involve a beep test and some push-ups and things of that nature. So I'm thinking like Dan Liebold is the most honest, salt of the earth man you'd ever want to meet. Like if it came from Danny, it must be true. And so I bet, and Spotter gets Scott Atkins, who was the strength and conditioning coach at the time, to come out, and he ropes off the beep test. And I think I have to do this for the benefits. So beep, Troy starts running, right? Beep, I'm running back. But as I'm doing this, I start to see like Adam Bramhill walk out. Jeff Young walks out of the office. Right. And all these people, I'm like, why are all these people all of a sudden walking out to the ice that's not there right now? This is June, and I'm kind of starting to get wise to it. And then finally, Pete opens the door and is like, "All right, Smitty, that's enough. You're a coach now. You got to figure this out." Right. And basically, he had set me up. And I'm not the only person he's got on this trick, but he set me up to do a fake fitness test on probably my 3rd day on the job. But he is a legend, that guy. Like he's one of a kind. But he had a lot of fun that day with it. That's for sure. Doing the beep test as a coach.
Poper, sorry, I'm going to jump in with my follow-up here because it's the name I promised earlier I was going to refer back to a previous podcast guest, and I'm anal. It just fits. So hang in there with me. But Steve Spott, when he was on here, Troy, he brought your name up and said that you're a guy that he would like to see back in the game at some point. You hinted earlier that kind of the never say never. And I know that you're an automotive guy now, and talk about Acuron Brandt all you want, because a great group and you've been supportive of my fundraising endeavors. But is there any chance we're going to see Troy Smith back in the game in any capacity?
I would say never say never. Like right now, I'm concentrating on my, I'm a general manager now with limited car experience. So I'm concentrating on that, but I would love to get back involved in the game, whether it's scouting or coaching, whatever it may be. It's just been, it's been a tough time with obviously the pandemic to see what's out there, but you're going to start to see me a little bit more than you probably want to, Mike. I do miss the meals in the press room there. So I'll end up back in it at some point in some capacity. It's just got to be the right time and the right opportunity.
Did you ever get Spotter back?
Spotter's impossible to get back. The problem is like you got to be like, you want to get Spotter back, he's going to get you back 100 times worse. Like when you talk about the fax machine that he sent to Bob Bugner, like he'd hide things into people's bags. So I know with one of the Leafs assistant, well, it was Steve Stais. So all of a sudden I'm at Spotter's house and he hands me this moldy, gross, I think it was guacamole or something like that. And he literally had kept it for like 4 months after the season, gave it to me and says, give this to Steve. So I walk in and I hand it to Steve and he knew exactly what it was. Like Spotter had stuck something in his bag. We send that back to Stephen Harper with, who went to San Jose's camp that year. And then I want to say Spotter purelated it back to the Bulldog. Like you can't win with Spotter. Like he's 2 steps ahead. I do have a way to know if he's serious or not now, but you know, I can't divulge those secrets because it would ruin all his good games. But for as much as he's a prankster, he's got a heart of gold and give you the shirt off his back.
His canceling the Memorial Cup prank was pretty good too.
That might be the all-time best.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't tell his bosses about, well, he told Pete because obviously Pete was in on it, but the fact that Steve Binkowski didn't know, like, I don't know, like he's got more guts than I do too. I'd be scared to death to do that, but that was brilliant. Dave Yutzi did a great job on that. I'm trying to think, like, there's just things that Spotter does. I remember we were in Erie one night, and this is before video replay. So we score a goal that wasn't even close to being in, like not even close. And you guys know the back hallway. It's basically the whole length of the ice before the renovation in Erie. And the fans are all over this poor goal judge who turned the light on, wasn't even close to being in. That wins us the game. So this guy's just been abused by the Erie faithful for a good solid 10, 15 minutes. So he's walking down the hall. He's got his head down. Spotter looks at him. He goes, hey, great game tonight. Very underrated. Thank you. Like, it's like, who thinks of that? But that's Spotter. I love the guy. I love him. He's the best. So,
we touched on it earlier, but I just want to get some of your thoughts because you know you had the Danny Flynn line away from the actual championship, and we know how proud you are. Your Santa FX, you know, being an alum. You've got the ring that we've seen. Are you wearing it tonight?
Not just alum, Hall of Famer.
That's true.
Santa FX Hall of Famer.
That's true.
Of course he's wearing the ring. Of course he's wearing the ring for the podcast. What does that championship mean to you?
Unbelievable relationships. You know, I keep going back to it, but really that's what the game's about. You can win and lose. You know, that's going to go up and down. You're going to be on good teams. You're going to be on bad teams. But when I think back to that team, you know, there's guys that, you know, because what you guys probably don't know is we had made it 2 out of the 3 years previous and lost. So there's so many guys along that journey that are still lifelong friends. And really to win it with my brother, it was on my dad's birthday with my 2 best friends in the rink, a guy named Rob Leggett and his brother Brett. Just something that you'll never forget. And even better is that former Oshawa General Ryan Lindsay, who was kind of my, you know, quote unquote hero growing up, he was a couple years older. We beat him. So I'll always have that on him. And, you know, it was a great time and, you know, right out of a storybook when it comes to a small town. It was almost like Hoosiers, right? Where, you know, this little small town wins the championship. The people in town loved it. I'll never forget walking into my class about 4 days later, 3-4 days later, with Dr. Maltby, who's one of the business professors there.
Still hungover.
Oh, well, yeah, probably. might be one step further than that, Poper. But I walk in, and again, this is 3-4 days later for class, right? Because I gotta graduate and everything else. Looks at me and goes, "What are you doing here?" And I go, "Well, I've been in your class all semester, Neil." He goes, No, I thought you'd still be out, you know, having a time with the boys.
See?
You know, that's the same effect. If you're a good person, you'll last. If you're not, it's not all about the party, but it's a great place and it's all about the people.
If we can go towards the other coast, what was the experience like when you went over to Humboldt?
So heavy, right? That's a good way to put it, but it's really hard to put into words. Like there's 2 parts to it. There's obviously the sadness of it and just, you know, how heavy that was, but the appreciation for the resilience I have for all those people in Humboldt, people that lost loved ones. It really provided perspective, right? Because we get on the bus all the time, and obviously, that was a tragedy that happened. But to watch the people that, went through such a traumatic event and not really have the space to grieve and deal with it, but to watch how they handled it with such dignity. And, everybody's got their own ways of dealing with it and stuff like that. But the forgiveness in some of the people, the appreciation of other people that I would go out there, which I found bizarre, but it's impossible to put into words other than it was extremely heavy. It was a great example of resilience, as I've said, and it's by far the most rewarding experience I've had in hockey.
That experience, the resiliency and the tragedy aside, I remember getting a picture from you from one of the barns that you were in, and I use barn deliberately here.
Oh, yeah.
You had some rinks while you were in the SJHL.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was in La Ronge, Saskatchewan. It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. And the press box was literally just like a piece of plywood above our bench, no railings, no anything. And you'd have to look up La Ronge on a map to really understand it. But it's old school. Like, you went from everywhere from Wilcox, where Notre Dame is, to La Ronge, to down to Estevan, who had a beautiful new rink. But it's all those small towns. And the only other thing I remember is I don't think you can explain how cold it is there. I want to say our first game, I was going to get on the bus and somebody told me it was minus 49 with the wind chill. We never turned the bus off. It was just, but no, all those towns, and they're all the same, where they've all got local people that are supporting it, selling the 50-50. It's old school, man. And so is that league. It was a good, honest league. The hockey's a lot better than I think people realize. The coaching is a heck of a lot better than people realize. And it's a bit of a hidden gem that way. I don't think the SJ gets the respect it deserves.
You mentioned how it was the most rewarding part of your hockey career. You also got to wear the Canadian National Leaf as a video coach, an assistant coach, as a head coach. Do you look back on that? I guess I don't want to ask you just what it means, because I'm sure it means a lot, but what was it like being a coach of Team Canada?
Amazing. What I've been fortunate. I think I've done it 4 or 5 times now. I can't remember exactly, but I just did the Youth Olympic Games, about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, whatever it was, over in Switzerland. And the thing that you can't put into words is the responsibility of that leap, right? Because when you walk in, whether you brought your best team or you haven't brought your best team, everybody expects you to be the best team. And people put Canada on a different pedestal at those tournaments, where really, that Maple Leaf is a bit of a target, right? But they also want to watch how Canadians present themselves. And really that's where, in my opinion, Hockey Canada separates themselves from maybe some other nations, where the way they present, the way they go about things, the preparation, it's second to none. And what I learned so much about not just the game, but about people and how to deal with teams, bring teams together, things like that, it's, I've been extremely fortunate. And, a lot of good times in there too. We talk about Steve Spott, and one guy that people don't think is a prankster is a guy named Mike Johnson. And so the story goes, I went to the U18s in Fargo, North Dakota. All right. What a world-class place. So on our team is guys like Brett Conley, Ryan O'Reilly, I think Good Branson. That's the place where we saw Gabriel Landeskog for the first time. Is at this tournament. So about a week before, so I'm the video coach, right? And I'm never supposed to go on the ice. And then the Quebec League coach that we had got fired from his job. He pulls out hastily last minute. So now I got to go on the ice as well, which is great. What an opportunity. And I'm working with Mike Johnson, who's a legendary Hockey Canada coach. So Spotter says he didn't, but I still think he does. He did have a part of this. He sets up this drill, and I'm like 29. I'm still in decent shape. And he goes, okay, I need you to do this drill where basically you're just going to be the trailer in this 2-on-1 drill. And I'm looking at him like, okay, like it's going to be a bit of a skate, but it's Mike Johnson if he says so. Okay. So I get out there. Well, it was a bag skate is what it was, where like literally as the trailer, I was sprinting up to make it a 2-on-1. And I'd go back and forth. And I must have went for 7 minutes. And I'm telling him, I'm going, there's no freaking way that this guy's going to win. I'm just going to keep going. He's going to have to blow the whistle. And no, he just kept the drill going. Till finally, I thought my kidneys were going to burst. And I pulled over to Ron Tugner and I was like, Tugger, you got to go. And as soon as I pulled off, tweet, over to the board. Right? It's just, you know, I shouldn't really be admitting these things, but they're great stories. And, you know, Mike is a good man as well.
The stories is what this podcast is all about. I think that's why we named it what we did. It was Stroke of Genius by Poper on that one.
I think it was you, but
you've had some beauties. This is where Chris always jumps in and says, hang on, I just got one more, but I got to give you credit for this much, Smitty. We've got about an hour and you've only called me Michael once. That's a record for you.
Yeah. Well, when are we going to talk about the mayorship?
Right now.
No.
Goldie Wilson. So there's the story. I always tease Michael about becoming mayor of Kitchener or Waterloo, whichever one he wants, maybe regional councillor, right? And so I used to always get on the bus and call him Goldie Wilson from Back to the Future. But
and every once in a while, a Goldie Wilson, elect Goldie Wilson or Goldie Wilson for mayor. I can't remember what the poster says, but every once in a while that picture will end up in my inbox. So yeah, I always know where it's coming from.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I was just going to ask, when you were the head coach of Kitchener, you obviously had to come out and do post-game interviews with two bald idiots. Did you, which one gave the worst interviews? You can say me, it's fine.
No, I don't think, I didn't really ever give it to you, did I? We weren't good enough for me to kind of give you guys, you know, any sort of business back for, you know, I couldn't say to you like, hey, that was a stupid question when, you know, the first year we weren't very good.
No, I think the only time was when I questioned you why your power play was struggling, but that night it had went like 3 for 4 or something. And you're like, well, I think it was pretty good tonight. I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. Do you want to talk about the 0 for 13 streak before that, or?
That happens to everybody.
Exactly.
You're only in trouble with me if I give you the 1-word answer, and I won't say who got enough of those, but might be, anyways, I won't say it. He's a nice enough guy, but no, I think I had a pretty good relationship with the media. For the most part, everybody was always fair, and you know, I thought Brownie did a great job. Yeah, no, you guys were good. You guys were real good.
What did it mean? Both ways.
Sorry, Farzi. What did it mean going back when you left Kitchener, then you come back with Hamilton when the OHL goes to Hamilton as the Bulldogs? What did it mean to be a part of that organization to you, being a Hamilton kid?
You know, I was a 9-year-old kid causing havoc in the stands when that arena was built and watching the Steelhawks. So it was really, really special. I think, you know, the one thing about Hamilton, and you know, and I can say this because Kitchener is obviously community owned, is I don't think the city of Hamilton has any clue, not a sniff, how lucky they are to have Michael Andlauer as the owner. That man, him, his wife Lucy, their whole family, unbelievably generous. He's not making any money at that thing. He just wants a great experience. And he said things to me in private that like would blow your mind about where he is with the team. And he wants to win, but it's all about an unbelievable experience for the kids. And it's never about dollars and cents. And I really hope that city council can get the heck out of the way and let them do what they need to do to make that rink what it is. Because I think if they do that, and they can move past the NHL dream, which is quite frankly never going to happen. And I might get, you know, scorned by Hamilton people for that. It's never happening. Never. Move on. Let's be a great city that supports an unbelievable junior hockey team, because that city's set up to be it, with great ownership, great schools, and a great community that doesn't realize what they have in the owner there.
You're reminding me of, you know, back before COVID when we were, you know, playing regularly, and Chris and I talked about this thing a couple of different times on the podcast. It's true. It seems that council can't get out of its own way in this particular instance to allow for, you know, what would be an ideal junior hockey environment.
I don't know a lot of people, like, other than, the Rangers, but, even the Rangers at times have had trouble with city council with the hat in hand comment and things like that. But I don't know a lot of owners that are going to sit there and say, I can't remember the number, but it's, tens of millions of dollars of my own money that I'm willing to invest in your city, and then get not backlash, but questioned about it. It's like, take the man's money. He's here to help. He wants to see the place do well. His intentions are pure. And you know what? I've been really fortunate to know the Anlauers. They actually introduced me to my significant other, my better half, much better half, Poper. And, they're like, again, I just can't say enough about how lucky Hamilton is to have that ownership group there.
I've said it numerous times. I was an intern with the Hamilton Bulldogs when they won the Calder Cup, and school year ended before the finals and everything. And I still got shipped a gold watch, a Hamilton Bulldogs gold watch that had my name on the back and like Calder Cup champions. Like, I was an intern. I had nothing but respect for Anlauer. Like, the guy was crazy.
Yeah, he's he's a self-made man. His story is his to tell, but it's an unbelievable story. And I became very close with that family, and he's just a thoughtful guy. Like, I remember one time I had to drop him off somewhere, and I was taking his car, which was a nice car. And I was like, oh, do you want me to take it back to the house, whatever? He's like, no, I'm not back till like Tuesday, drive it like you stole it. I'm like, okay. All right, beautiful car, driving around like the 10-cent millionaire. And, he's a beautiful man, great family. And you know what, his wife probably doesn't get enough credit for just how good of a person Lucy is as well.
Real nice vehicle. He must have got it at Acuron Brant.
Yes, Leggett Acuron Brant. That's the place to go, Poper. I haven't seen you in there yet, though.
Buddy, if I could afford a car, I'd be in there.
Don't worry, we got a budget for everybody.
Okay, I like it.
We're good.
I like it.
He's a general manager already. You can tell.
Yeah.
You can tell. Smitty, this has been a ton of fun. I think we're going to have to get Michael Anlauer on at some point. That's what Troy was hinting at there. But truly, for your stories, man, it's great to catch up first and foremost. But thanks for making time to share these stories with us on the pod. It's been a blast.
I'm glad you guys haven't forgotten about me, and look forward to seeing you in the rink. And hopefully I had a great time, and hopefully you guys did as well.